The studio courtroom had seen tantrums, tears, even the occasional fainting spell. But it had never seen someone walk in with the confidence of a person who believed. The law was a vending machine and the judge was just another button to press. Nadia Cross sat at the defendant's table like she owned it. Early 50s, immaculate blazer, a stack of color-coded binders, a polished practice smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't curious. She was certain. And then she did the one thing that turns a TV courtroom from case into event. She leaned forward, looked straight at Judge Hart, and said calmly, almost sweetly, "Your Honor, if you could stop performing for the cameras and focus on the facts, we'd all get out of here faster." The air changed instantly. Not loud, not dramatic, just colder. Judge Hart didn't raise her voice. She didn't blink hard. She didn't threaten contempt. She simply placed her pen down as if she'd reached the end of patience and the beginning of procedure. "Miss Cross," she said evenly, "you came here asking for facts. That's a risky request." Nadia gave a quick, dismissive laugh. "Facts don't scare me." Judge Hart tilted her head slightly. "They should." At the plaintiff's table, Samir Rahman gripped the edge of his folder so tightly his knuckles whitened. Next to him, his wife Lena stared at Nadia as if she were watching a storm gather directly above her home, because for 8 months, Nadia Cross had been that storm. Samir and Lena owned Harbor and Leaf, a small cafe and brunch spot tucked into a busy strip in Edison, New Jersey. It wasn't a trendy influencer location. It wasn't a franchise. It was 2 immigrants with a 10-year plan who finally got a storefront, 1 espresso machine they financed, 3 employees they treated like family, and a customer base that built slowly, honestly. Review by review. Then Nadia showed up one Thursday at 11:26, carrying a tote bag and a voice that carried across the room. "Hi," she said brightly. "I have a severe nut allergy. Before I order, I need to know your full allergen protocol." Lena didn't panic. She'd worked food service long enough to respect allergies. She gave Nadia their printed allergen disclaimer, explained that they used shared equipment, and offered safe alternatives. She was polite. She was careful. She was professional. Nadia nodded like she understood. Then she ordered a nut-free pastry anyway, despite being told clearly that cross-contact was possible. She asked for it heated. Lena refused to heat it on shared trays and offered a prepackaged option instead. That's when Nadia's face changed. Not anger. Not sadness. Something sharper. Like she'd been waiting for exactly that moment. "So you're refusing to serve me," Nadia said, loud enough for other customers to look over. Lena tried to keep the tone calm. "I'm not refusing. I'm offering options we can safely guarantee." Nadia's hand slipped into her tote bag and came out holding her phone. Camera already rolling. "You just admitted it," she said to the lens. "You're discriminating against a disabled customer. Severe allergies are protected." Samir stepped out from behind the counter and repeated the policy politely, carefully explaining cross-contact risks and offering alternatives. Nadia kept filming, cutting him off, pushing the words into something uglier. "Say it again," she demanded. "Say you won't serve me because of my condition." Samir didn't say that. But that didn't matter because Nadia didn't need truth. She needed a clip. Within 48 hours, Harbor and Leaf was bleeding. 27 one-star reviews dropped overnight. Same tone, same phrases. Unsafe. They hate people with allergies. Ableist. Refuse service. New accounts. No profile pictures. Posted within minutes of each other like a coordinated attack. Then came the emails. A complaint filed with the county health department. A report sent to a local consumer advocate blog. A formal demand letter from a law office with a polished header and an aggressive tone. ADA violations. Emotional distress. Damages. Attorney fees. The settlement offer was placed at the bottom like a knife. Left on the table. $19,750. If paid within 72 hours, Lena cried in their storage room that night because she knew exactly what that number meant. It wasn't random. It was designed. High enough to hurt, low enough to feel easier than fighting. Their lawyer told them what most small business lawyers say when the clock is ticking and the budget is thin. Settling might be cheaper than proving you're right. And that's how Nadia Cross made her living, by making cheaper feel like necessary. But Samir did something Nadia hadn't expected. He didn't just panic. He didn't just argue. He listened to the details, the timing, the pattern. He looked at the review accounts. He read the wording. He checked the dates. Then he searched Nadia Cross's name, and what he found made his stomach drop. Not one case. Not two. A trail. Different towns. Different businesses. Same allegations. Same severe allergy. Same discrimination. Same settlement range. Same sudden review bombing. Same pressure. Same deadline. Nadia wasn't a customer. She was a system. Samir and Lena started calling other owners. A Thai restaurant in Woodbridge. A family bakery in Newark. A small juice bar in Princeton. Different people, same story. Nadia shows up, records, triggers a public complaint, then offers a settlement right before the business collapses under legal costs and public panic. One owner said something that stuck in Lena's head for days. She doesn't want to win. She wants you to quit. That was the moment Samir and Lena decided they would not quit. They hired a private investigator. Not because they wanted revenge, but because they needed proof, something that could survive lawyers, survive court, survive the way people label a business online without waiting for facts. The investigator came back with information that didn't just help their case. It changed the shape of it, because Nadia's severe allergy had paperwork, a medical letter, a lab report, an emergency room record. It looked legitimate until you read it like someone who knows what to look for. The doctor's signature didn't match the license database. The lab's address belonged to a shipping center, and the air record contained a formatting stamp from a template website. Lena stared at the printouts and whispered, "This is manufactured." Samir didn't answer. He just sat there, thinking about how many businesses paid her because they never checked. That's when their investigator gave them the final piece, the one that made their attorney go silent on the phone. "There's a group chat," he said. "A private channel. People coordinate reviews and complaints. And her name is on it." Samir asked the obvious question, "Can we prove it?" The investigator hesitated. "Not yet. But if you take this to someone with a platform, she might make a mistake." And that's how a local Café dispute became a televised courtroom case. Not because Samir and Lena wanted attention, because Nadia Cross had built an entire career on betting that nobody would fight, where the world could see it. Now she was sitting in front of Judge Raina Hart, smiling like it was just another payday. Judge Hart glanced down at her file, thicker than most, heavier, marked with tabs. Nadia watched the judge's eyes move, then looked at Samir as if to say, "You're out of your depth." Judge Hart looked back up. Double quotes, "Miss Cross," she said, "before we discuss harbor and leave, I want to ask you something simple." Nadia crossed her arms. "Go ahead." Judge Hart's voice stayed calm. "How many times have you filed claims involving severe allergy discrimination in the last 5 years? Nadia opened her mouth, ready with a speech. A righteous-sounding one, but for the first time, she didn't answer immediately. And Judge Hart didn't fill the silence. She just waited, like she already knew the number. And she wanted Nadia to decide whether she'd lie on camera. Nadia finally smiled again. Asterisk. "I don't see how my past cases are relevant." Judge Hart nodded once, as if she expected that response. "Oh, they're relevant," she said, "because this isn't the first time you've used the same script." Then she tapped her folder twice. "And today, Miss Cross, I'm not the only one listening." Nadia's smile froze. Samir swallowed hard. Lena's hands started shaking again because she realized Judge Hart wasn't just building a verdict, she was building a record. And somewhere off camera, something else was already moving. Asterisk. Nadia Cross didn't start out as a headline. She started as a shortcut. 10 years earlier, she'd worked in compliance consulting, A title vague enough to sound impressive and flexible enough to cover what she actually did. Reading policies, spotting vulnerabilities, and charging people to fix them. She learned how small businesses operate, how tight the margins are, how fragile a reputation can be, how quickly panic spreads when someone says the wrong word online. Then she discovered the most profitable vulnerability of all. Fear, asterisk, not fear of losing a lawsuit. Fear of being labeled in modern business. Being called unsafe or discriminatory can destroy you long before any judge sees evidence. Nadia understood that better than most lawyers did. She didn't need to win in court. She needed you to feel cornered. Her playbook was clean, repeatable, and if you didn't look closely, almost plausible. Step 1. Pick a business that depends on public trust. Cafes, bakeries, juice bars, family restaurants. Bonus points if the owners have accents, limited legal support, or a community reputation they can't afford to stain. Step 2. Arrive with a condition that makes people nervous to challenge. Severe allergy, disability access, service animal, anything protected, anything emotionally loaded. Step 3. Record the interaction until you catch a sentence you can clip out of context. She didn't need a refusal. She needed hesitation. A policy. We can't guarantee. A moment of staff confusion. Step 4. Flood the reviews. A coordinated swarm of one-star hits from throwaway accounts using similar phrases. Posted in tight clusters to trigger algorithmic drops. Step 5. File official complaints to increase pressure. Health department. Consumer hotlines. Local bloggers. Sometimes she'd email a journalist directly with video proof. Step 6. Send the demand letter with an urgent deadline and a settlement number that feels like a painful bargain. Most owners paid, not because they were guilty, because they were tired, scared, and trying to keep payroll alive. In 5 years, Nadia's network pulled money from at least 30 businesses. Settlements in the $9,000 to $25,000 range. Enough to keep owners awake at night, not enough to inspire a full legal war. Nadia kept her hands clean by doing 2 things. First, she used vendors. People who weren't technically employees. A digital marketing guy who ran review drops. A consumer advocate blogger who published outrage posts. A record specialist who produced official-looking documents. Second, she hid behind an attorney named Grant Holman. A settlement-hungry civil lawyer who never asked too many questions as long as the checks cleared. And Nadia was too good at playing sincere. She could cry on command. She could shake her hands for the camera. She could say, "I'm just asking to be safe," while she lit a match under someone's livelihood. What she didn't anticipate was Samir and Lena, because Harbor and Leaf didn't just lose money. They lost stability. Their supplier called asking if the cafe had issues. A corporate catering client postponed. A regular customer emailed Lena, politely, "Is it true you're unsafe for allergy people?" Lena reread that email 10 times, stuck between anger and panic. Because she wasn't unsafe. She was honest. And honesty is what Nadia punished. While the cafe's reputation bled out online, Samir's investigator kept digging. The group chat lead turned into something bigger. A private channel where members traded templates. How to write a review that sounds like a real customer, how to file complaints that trigger immediate follow-up, how to clip videos to maximize impact. The chat wasn't just talking, it was operating, but the investigators still needed the one thing that turned suspicion into certainty, a direct link to Nadia, not hearsay. Not "it looks like," proof that would stand up in front of a judge who doesn't care about vibes. That's when the investigator suggested the TV courtroom, not because television is justice, because television creates pressure, and pressure makes scammers slip. The show's producers agreed to hear the case because it had all the elements viewers recognize: an alleged discrimination claim, a small business on the brink, and a defendant who had filed multiple similar actions. But what made Judge Rena Hart take it seriously was something else. A letter. It came from a legal aid group that worked with immigrant-owned businesses. Short, direct, no drama. This defendant uses civil rights language as leverage. Pattern suggests coordinated fraud. Multiple prior victims. Please review carefully. Judge Hart reviewed carefully. More than carefully. Her team pulled public filings and built a timeline. They found repeated language across legal letters. Reused paragraphs. Identical settlement demands with different business names swapped and like a mail merge. They found the same doctor's note style in 3 different cases, same font, same margins, different signatures. They found a lab report format that didn't match any major lab's standard template. And then they found something that made Judge Hart sit back in her chair and go still. Nadia had filed one case under a slightly different name, Nadia McCrossan, years earlier. In that filing, she accidentally included an email address connected to a small consulting website. Asterisk, the website offered reputation management and compliance pressure strategy. Pressure strategy. Judge Hart read that line twice, then asked her researcher to dig deeper. The researcher came back with archive pages that no longer existed publicly. Screenshots from old web caches. One page listed services and bullet points that sounded like a threat menu. Coordinated consumer reviews complaint. Escalation protocol media packaging for maximum visibility settlement negotiation scripting. This wasn't activism. It was a product. Judge Hart requested additional background. A quiet call to a contact in consumer fraud investigations. Not to get someone arrested on TV, but to confirm whether Nadia's name had ever surfaced. It had. Not enough for charges yet. Enough for interest. And that's why, on the day Nadia Cross walked into the studio courtroom, there were 2 observers sitting off to the side with notebooks. Introduced as audience. They weren't audience. They were there to watch Nadia talk. Because fraud doesn't always reveal itself in documents. Sometimes it reveals itself in arrogance. Nadia didn't see them, or didn't register them. She was too focused on Judge Hart and the camera lens. She presented herself like a public rights warrior, a consumer safety advocate, the brave woman standing up to negligent businesses. Asterisk, she had her binder ready. She had her clip ready. She had her language ready, and she had one more advantage. She believed. Samir and Lena looked nervous. Scammers love nervous people. Nervous people want endings. Judge Hart opened with basic questions. Date, time, what was said, what was offered. Nadia performed smoothly. They refused to accommodate. Nadia said, "They made me feel unsafe. They dismissed my condition. I feared for my life." Judge Hart nodded as if she was listening, because she was. Then Judge Hart asked about the alternatives Lena offered. Prepackaged option, cross-contact disclaimer, separate utensils. Nadia waved it away. "That's not equal service," she said. "That's segregation." Samir started to speak, but Nadia cut him off with a practiced, loud politeness. "Let him talk. Judge, it'll be entertaining." Judge Hart's eyes shifted just slightly. Asterisk was cross, she said. "You're here as a party, not a commentator." Nadia shrugged. "I'm just saying I've done this before." Judge Hart didn't bite. "Have you?" Nadia smiled like she'd been invited to brag. "Many times." Judge Hart turned a page in her file. "How many?" Nadia's smile held. "Enough to know when a business is lying." Judge Hart's voice stayed even. "That's not a number." Nadia's lawyer, Grant Holman, finally spoke. "Your Honor, her prior matters aren't relevant." Judge Hart's tone sharpened for the first time. Not loud, precise. "Mr. Holman, in my courtroom, pattern is relevant when the pattern is the business." Nadia's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing me of something?" Judge Hart looked directly at her. "I'm asking questions." Nadia leaned back, then delivered the line she thought would put the judge on defense. The same move she used on terrified business owners. Asterisk. "Honestly, Judge, you're coming off hostile. I don't know if it's personal or if you're trying to look tough for TV, but it's not a good look." Samir's stomach dropped. He'd seen this tactic. Shift the spotlight. Put authority on trial. Make the room feel like the judge is unfair. Not the defendant. It worked in real life because most people don't want conflict with a loud accuser. But Judge Hart didn't flinch. She held Nadia's gaze for 2 full seconds, then asked quietly, "Miss Cross, do you recognize the name Protocol Fred?" Nadia blinked. "What?" Judge Hart slid a printed page forward, not to Nadia, toward the camera view. "A private channel," Judge Hart said, "where review attacks are scheduled like deliveries." Grant Holman shifted in his seat. "Your Honor Foundation," Judge Hart cut him off. "You'll get your foundation." Nadia's mouth tightened. "I have no idea what that is." Judge Hart nodded once, almost politely. "Okay." Then she pressed a button. The screen behind her lit up, not with Nadia's Café video, but with a screenshot of a chat message timestamped 7:01 p.m. *. It read, "Drop the unsafe reviews now. Use out accounts. Keep wording similar. Push allergy discrimination angle." Under the message was a blurred username, then, beneath it, an email fragment visible enough to recognize. Nadia.cross at. Nadia's face didn't collapse, not yet, but the confidence wavered. Like a light flickering before it goes out, she leaned forward fast, voice rising. "That's fake," she snapped. "That's edited." "You can't." Judge Hart raised a single finger, and Nadia stopped mid-sentence without even realizing she'd obeyed. Judge Hart spoke softly. "Miss Cross, I'm going to ask you again, how many allergy discrimination claims have you filed in the last 5 years?" Nadia swallowed. The observers on the side didn't move. Pens ready. Samir felt Lena's hand find his under the table. Nadia finally answered, slower now. "I don't know. 10, 12? People keep violating." Judge Hart opened her folder and read without looking up. Asterisk, 29. Nadia went still. Judge Hart continued, calm as an ice bath. "And today, we're going to find out whether those were violations, or whether you've been selling panic to small businesses for profit." Nadia's lawyer leaned in to whisper to her, but she pulled away, eyes fixed on the judge, like she could force reality to bend back into her script. Judge Hart looked straight at her. "Do you want facts, Miss Cross?" Nadia's voice came out thin. "Yes," Judge Hart nodded. "Then let's start with your paperwork." And she reached for the first Exhibit 1 page. That would make Nadia realize this wasn't just a case. It was a collapse. Asterisk. Judge Hart held up Nadia's medical documentation like it weighed something, not physically, morally. "This is the letter you submitted," Judge Hart said, "stating you have a severe, life-threatening tree nut allergy, correct?" Nadia regained a bit of posture. "Correct. And this letter is signed by Dr. Amelia Rourke?" "Yes." Judge Hart looked down at her file. "Dr. Rourke doesn't exist in the state licensing database." Grant Holman jumped in quickly. "Your Honor, it could be under a maiden name, or..." Judge Hart cut him off without looking at him. "It could be. So my staff checked. No match under any variant. No match under the NPI registry. No match under any hospital directory in this state or neighboring states." Nadia's jaw tightened. "So what, you're saying I forged it?" Judge Hart didn't answer the question yet. She never did when someone tried to steer her. She only moved forward. "This lab report," she said, lifting the next page, "is allegedly from Garden State Clinical Labs and includes an IH panel." Nadia nodded. "That's my proof." Judge Hart turned the page around toward the camera so the address line was clearly visible. "That address is a UPS store." A low ripple moved through the audience. Nadia snapped. "Lots of labs use mail services." Judge Hart's eyes lifted. "They do, but they don't list it as their primary location. And they don't use a Gmail contact for medical records requests. And they don't spell anaphylaxis wrong on an official report." Nadia opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "This is harassment." Lena's breath caught. She'd been called harassing for defending herself too. That word harassment was a shield Nadia threw like a brick. Judge Hart set the papers down and looked directly at Nadia. "Miss Cross, in harbor and leave security footage, you asked for nut-free items. You were offered packaged alternatives. You refused. You demanded heated pastries on shared equipment after being told the risk. You were not denied service. You were denied a guarantee." Nadia's voice rose. "A guarantee is the accommodation?" Judge Hart's voice stayed level. No. A guarantee of zero cross-contact in a shared kitchen is not a reasonable accommodation unless the business advertises it and is equipped for it. What you demanded was impossible. Then you recorded the no and sold it as discrimination. Nadia leaned forward, eyes bright with anger. You don't know what it's like to live with a condition that could kill you. Samir whispered, barely audible. Then why did you order it anyway? Judge Hart heard him. She turned slightly. Mr. Rahman, you're about to get your answer. Then she looked back at Nadia. Miss Cross, have you ever been treated in an emergency room for anaphylaxis? Nadia didn't hesitate. Yes, twice. Judge Hart nodded as if that was helpful. Great, name the hospital. Nadia blinked. What? Judge Hart repeated it. Name the hospital. Nadia's eyes flickered to her lawyer. Grant Holman tried to rescue her. Your Honor, medical privacy. Judge Hart's response came quick. She made it central to her claim. She could answer. Nadia inhaled sharply. St. Mary's. Judge Hart didn't look impressed. She pressed a button and the screen behind her changed again, this time to a simple record. Request response. St. Mary's Hospital, Judge Hart read. Returned a statement. No record found under Nadia Cross, Nadia Crossan. Or the date ranges you provided in prior filings. Nadia's face flushed. That proves nothing. Records get lost. Judge Hart nodded slowly. Records can be hard to retrieve. Which is why we checked another thing. She held up a printed screenshot of a post in old one. Archived, pulled from a public forum. The username was blurred. But the profile photo wasn't. Nadia, smiling, holding a latte. The post read, if you're going to run the allergy angle, don't claim peanuts. Claim tree nuts harder to prove cross-contact. Also, don't ever do the A thing unless you have real paperwork. The room went dead quiet. Grant Holman's head turned toward Nadia. Just slightly, like he'd just heard a confession in a language he couldn't unhear. Nadia's voice came out sharp and panicked. That's not me. Judge Hart didn't argue. She didn't need to. She simply added, the account email attached to this forum profile matches the email used to send your settlement demand to Harbor and Leaf. Nadia's lips parted. Searching for oxygen and a new script, Judge Hart leaned back. Now we're getting to the part you tried to distract us from with your comments about my performance. Nadia snapped. Because you're performing? You're biased, and honestly, she looked the judge up and down with open contempt. You're too old school to understand modern disability rights. You think small businesses can do whatever they want. The insult landed, but Judge Hart didn't move. Instead, she asked, Ms. Cross, who wrote your demand letter? Nadia laughed once, brittle. My attorney. Judge Hart turned to Grant Holman. Did you write it, Mr. Holman? Holman cleared his throat. It's based on information provided by my client. Judge Hart nodded. So your client provided the phrase, escalation protocol, yes? Holman hesitated. I don't recall. Judge Hart lifted another exhibit, an internal document titled, Escalation Protocol, Allergy Discrimination Packages. Bullet points, timelines, suggested language. Review drop schedule. Complaint targets. Settlement ranges at the bottom. Prepared by N. Cross, revised 11/2024. Samir felt Lena squeeze his hand under the table so hard it hurt. Nadia's face changed. Not just anger, now fear. Controlled fear, the kind that tries not to show itself because showing it makes it real. That's stolen. Nadia said quickly. That's private. That's illegal to have. Judge Hart's eyes stayed steady. We have it legally, and we're not done. Nadia tried a different angle, voice suddenly softer, wounded. Your Honor, you're humiliating me. I'm a person. I'm not some criminal. Judge Hart didn't soften. Then stop behaving like one. Nadia's voice shot back up. You can't call me a criminal. You're not a real court. Judge Hart paused. Then, very quietly, do you know what a real court has that this courtroom also has? Nadia sneered. What? Judge Hart's gaze flicked briefly toward the side seating, the two silent observers. Consequences. Nadia followed the judge's glance and, for the first time, really looked at them. Audience members. Not fans. Not staff, men in plain suits, not watching the spectacle, watching Nadia. Nadia's throat moved as she swallowed. Grant. Hallman leaned in and whispered something urgently. Nadia jerked away from him like she didn't want to hear it. Judge Hart spoke again, voice controlled and exact. Miss Cross, you accuse me of performing. You accuse this court of staging. You submitted documents that appear fabricated. You coordinated review attacks. You sent settlement demands with deadlines. You repeated this pattern across multiple jurisdictions. Nadia's voice cracked. This is a witch hunt. Judge Hart didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply said, no. Miss Cross, it's an audit. Then she turned to Samir and Lena. Mr. and Mrs. Rahman, you said in your statement that someone contacted you offering to fix your ratings for a price after the review bombing. Is that correct? Lena nodded. Yes, same week. They said they could remove the bad reviews and publish a follow-up story if we paid. Judge Hart looked back at Nadia. And who do you think that person was? Nadia's mouth opened then closed. Because any answer she gave would be dangerous. Judge Hart reached into her folder and pulled out a sealed envelope. Nadia's eyes locked on it. Judge Hart didn't open it yet. She just placed it on the bench, tapped it once, and said, this envelope contains a sworn statement from someone who used to work with you. Grant Hallman went pale. Your Honor, Judge Hart cut him off. Not a word. Nadia's voice turned thin, almost pleading without meaning to. Who? Judge Hart held Nadia's gaze for one long second, then she answered with a calm that felt brutal. Person who scheduled your review drops. Nadia's hands tightened into fists on the table. Judge Hart looked down at the envelope again, then back up. Double quotes, Miss Cross. She said, do you want to hear it the easy way or the public way? Nadia forced a laugh that sounded like it hurt. I want a fair hearing. Judge Hart nodded. Then you're about to get one. She lifted the envelope flap, and Nadia Cross, who had walked in thinking she was the smartest person in the room, finally looked like someone who realized she might not walk out the same way. Judge Hart opened the envelope slowly. Not for drama, because she understood something Nadia didn't. In a courtroom, the most terrifying moment isn't the shouting. It's the paper. She pulled out a notarized statement and began to read. This affidavit is from Jordan Pike, Judge Hart said. Former contractor for Miss Cross, Digital Reputation Management. Nadia's head snapped up. He's lying. Judge Hart didn't even look at her. You'll get your turn. Quiet. Grant Hallman put a hand on Nadia's arm as if to calm her. Nadia jerked away again. Judge Hart read, line by line, like she was reciting a receipt. Jordan Pike states that Ms. Cross paid him $600 per incident to coordinate review campaigns across Google, Yelp, and Facebook. He states she provided the wording, the posting schedule, and the target businesses. He states Ms. Cross referred to these as pressure waves. Nadia's mouth moved, trying to interrupt. Judge Hart raised her eyes just once, and Nadia stopped. Judge Hart continued. He states, Ms. Cross kept a spreadsheet labeled targets with notes including immigrant owners settle fast, no legal counsel good, and community reputation high leverage. Lena's eyes filled. Not because she was surprised, but because hearing it read out loud made it undeniable. They hadn't imagined it. They had been selected. Judge Hart went on, asterisk. He states Ms. Cross provided him with pre-written complaint templates for health departments and consumer agencies. He states Ms. Cross used the phrase, quote, we don't win in court. We win in panic. The courtroom was silent in the way people get silent when the truth feels ugly to sit near. Nadia's lawyer finally stood. Your Honor, we object. This is hearsay. And Judge Hart held up a hand. Mr. Hallman, this is arbitration. I can consider sworn statements. And if you want Jordan Pike here, I can arrange that too. Hallman sat down slowly. Judge Hart flipped the page. Mr. Pike also states that Ms. Cross's medical packets were created using templates purchased online and edited by a person named Lila Cross, Ms. Cross's cousin, who operates an unlicensed document preparation business. Nadia's voice exploded. This is insane. My cousin has nothing to do with Judge Hart looked up, then explained why the PayPal account paying for those templates is registered to your email. Nadia froze. Judge Hart pressed another button and the screen lit with transaction logs. Small purchases, repeated labeled forms, medical letter, lab report template, followed by larger outgoing payments marked reviews and blog. Nadia started shaking her head fast. This is illegal. You can't have my financials. Judge Hart answered calmly. You submitted them when you sent the settlement demands. Your attorney attached your payment instructions. Your accounts aren't invisible, Miss Cross. They're just unexamined until now. Nadia's breathing turned shallow. She looked around the room, like she could find a sympathetic face to anchor herself. There wasn't one. Judge Hart turned slightly toward the side seating. For the record, the observers from the Consumer Fraud Unit have requested copies of these exhibits. They will receive them. One of the observers made a single note. No reaction. No satisfaction. Just procedure. Nadia swallowed hard. So what? I'm on trial now. Judge Hart's eyes didn't soften. You've been putting people on trial in public for years. Today you're meeting the same spotlight. Then Judge Hart looked at Samir. Mr. Rahman, what were your out-of-pocket losses? Samir cleared his throat. We have the numbers. Canceled catering, $8,400. Refunds we issued because people panicked. $2,100. Legal consultation. $6,800. Marketing. To rebuild our rating, $4,300. And revenue drop about $18,000. Over 3 months. Judge Hart nodded. Flipping through the documentation. Nadia tried one more pivot, voice suddenly tearful. Your Honor, I'm just trying to be safe. People with allergies get dismissed all the time. I'm advocating. Judge Hart cut in, sharp but controlled. Advocacy doesn't come with a settlement deadline and a review bomb schedule. Nadia snapped, rage overtaking fear. You're enjoying this. Judge Hart leaned forward. What I enjoy, Miss Cross, is evidence. Then she delivered the question that Nadia could not survive. Where is your EpiPen? Nadia blinked. What? Judge Hart repeated it. If you have a severe life-threatening allergy, you carry an epinephrine auto-injector. Where is it? Nadia stammered. I have one. Not with me. Judge Hart's eyes narrowed. You came to court to claim you feared for your life? Without the medical device that saves your life? Nadia's voice rose, desperate. People forget things. Judge Hart didn't blink. People with real anaphylaxis don't. A few audience members shifted uncomfortably. Because that line wasn't for drama, it was for anyone watching at home, who actually lives with a real condition and knows the difference between fear and performance. Nadia's lawyer leaned toward her, whispering again, this time longer. Nadia stared straight ahead, refusing to look at him. Judge Hart reviewed one last exhibit. This is the voicemail you left Harbor and Leaf, she said. The one you claim was misunderstood. We're going to play it. Nadia jolted. No. Judge Hart pressed play. Nadia's voice filled the courtroom, confident and casual. Listen, Samir, I'm trying to help you. This gets worse if you fight. The reviews are already moving. The blog story can go live tomorrow. Pay the number, we clean it up, and you get your life back. If you don't, we'll see how long your business lasts. The audio ended. No gasps this time. Just the heavy silence of a room that knows it's listening to extortion dressed in polite language. Judge Hart looked down at her notes, then up at Nadia. That wasn't a settlement discussion, Judge Hart said. That was a threat. Nadia's eyes were glossy now. Her voice cracked. It's negotiation. Judge Hart replied instantly. It's leverage. And leverage becomes coercion when the harm is manufactured by you. Then Judge Hart delivered the ruling. Clean and final. Judgment for the plaintiffs on all claims, Miss Cross. Your discrimination complaint is dismissed with prejudice. You may not refile. Nadia's head snapped up. You can't. Judge Hart continued over her. On the counterclaim, Miss Cross will pay Harbor and Leaf $31,600 for documented financial losses and legal expenses, plus $20,000 punitive damages for malicious conduct. Total, $51,600. Lena covered her mouth, crying. Samir exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. Nadia shook her head wildly. This is character assassination. Judge Hart's voice went cold. Character is what you do when you think no one is watching. Then she looked toward the side seating again. And for the record, I am referring this matter, along with supporting exhibits, to the Consumer Fraud Unit and to the IRS liaison who contacted my office regarding unreported settlement income. Nadia stood up abruptly, chair scraping. I'm leaving. The bailiff stepped forward. Ma'am, Nadia snapped, don't touch me. Judge Hart didn't shout. She simply said, sit down. Nadia didn't sit. She turned toward the exit, and that's when one of the observers stood up calmly. Professionally, MZ words Nadia had built her entire life trying to avoid. Miss Cross, we need to speak with you outside, now. Nadia stopped moving. For half a second, she looked like she might run anyway. Then the second observer stood and the room understood. This wasn't just a TV loss. This was the handoff. Nadia's voice turned small. Am I being arrested? The observer didn't answer that on camera. He only said, step this way. And Nadia Cross, who had walked in thinking she'd collect another check, walked out escorted. Eyes forward, breathing fast. Realizing the real court was no longer a stage. It was waiting in the hallway. Asterisk. The clip didn't go viral because a scammer cried. It went viral because she didn't. At least not at first, not the moment that spread across the internet. Wasn't Nadia's panic, or Judge Hart's verdict, or even the review bomb receipts on the screen. It was that one calm sentence Judge Hart delivered after Nadia accused her of performing. Facts don't scare you. They should. Because people are tired of watching predators hide behind righteous language. And Nadia Cross had built her entire business on using the fear of being labeled discriminatory to shake money out of small business owners who were already barely surviving. Within hours, owners from other towns started commenting with the same pattern. Asterisk, she did it to us. Same email, same deadline. Same reviews. Same wording. I paid because I couldn't afford to fight. And that's the part Nadia never planned for. Not the judge. Not the evidence. The chorus. Once people saw the script, they recognized it in their own stories. Suddenly, cases that lived separately isolated victims who felt ashamed, confused, or too exhausted to speak began connecting. Harbor and Leaf didn't just get their name back. They became the crack in the wall. Samir and Lena returned to their cafe the next day and found something they hadn't seen in months. Regular customers walking in without hesitation. Asterisk A. Woman who'd stopped coming during the scandal ordered coffee and said, quietly, I'm sorry, I believe the reviews. Lena smiled, tired but real. I'm just glad you're here. They didn't throw a celebration. They didn't post a victory dance. They were too busy repairing the damage Nadia had engineered. Staff morale, vendor trust, customer confidence. Their own sleep schedules, but they did one thing that mattered. They printed a new sign and taped it near the register. Asterisk, we take allergies seriously. We also take honesty seriously. And under it, in smaller letters, if you have severe allergies, please tell us. We'll offer what we can safely guarantee. No shame. No defensiveness. Just clarity, the one thing scammers hate. Over the next weeks, the pressure wave network started to collapse. Jordan Pike, the contractor whose affidavit blew the case open, wasn't the only one talking anymore. Once the Consumer Fraud Unit began making calls, other people did what people always do when the spotlight gets hot. They tried to save themselves. Asterisk. The blogger who posted Nadia's outrage stories suddenly deleted older articles. Too late. Screenshots already existed. The reputation manager who offered to fix ratings started ignoring messages. Too late. Payment logs were saved. A document prep service that produced medical packets suddenly changed its name online. Too late. Templates were already traced to the account purchases. Nadia's attorney, Grant Hallman, released a statement later carefully written, full of legal distance. We deny wrongdoing. We are reviewing the matter. No charges have been filed, the usual. But inside the legal world, people started whispering what they always whisper after a pattern goes public. How many did he know about? How many letters did he send? How many settlements did he process? Because enabling a scheme isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just repetitive paperwork with the same tone, the same threat, and the same money. For Samir and Lena, the aftermath was simpler but deeper. They finally slept. Not perfectly. Not immediately. But they stopped jolting awake to email notifications. They stopped checking their rating every hour. They stopped bracing for the next complaint. They also did something Nadia never anticipated. They started helping others, not as heroes. As neighbors dot when another local owner messaged Samir, "Someone is threatening me with a disability claim. What do I do?" Samir didn't say pay. He said, document everything. Don't panic. And don't respond emotionally. Respond with policy and proof. He told them what he learned the hard way. Scammers thrive when you feel alone. The biggest twist in this entire story wasn't Nadia's downfall. It was how ordinary the mechanics were. No cinematic hacking. No secret government files. Just repeated language across CAS system to review addicts fake. Documents with sloppy detail settlement. Numbers designed like traps. And one judge who understood that pattern is evidence when the pattern is the profit. And Nadia's most fatal mistake wasn't insulting Judge Hart. It was believing the courtroom was still her stage. Because in the hallway, away from the cameras, the consumer fraud unit's questions are not rhetorical. They don't care about your performance voice. They don't care about your victim posture. They care about your messages, your payments, your templates, your accomplices, your taxes. Nadia had built her empire on the assumption that each victim would stay isolated. Harbor and Leaf connected the dots. Judge Hart displayed the dots, and the public finally saw the picture. In the months that followed, Harbor and Leaf's rating climbed back up, not because people pitied them, but because customers returned and realized the cafe had never been the villain. Their catering orders resumed. A local business group featured them in a resilience panel. Their employees stopped flinching when someone walked in holding a phone. Lena later said something in an interview that quietly destroyed Nadia's entire advocacy persona. She didn't want safety. She wanted control. That line hit because it's the truth behind so many modern scams. They don't steal only money. They steal oxygen. They steal time. They steal peace. And if you're building a video like a judge-style case, that's the real payoff, not the yelling, not even the verdict. The payoff is watching a person who weaponized fear finally meet someone who refuses to panic. Judge Hart closed the case on camera with a final statement that didn't feel like television. It felt like warning. To anyone watching, she said, if someone manufactures harm to demand money, that's not justice. That's fraud. And fraud doesn't become legal because you use the right buzzwords. Then she looked at the lens for half a second, just enough to make it personal. And if you run your life on scripts, eventually you'll meet someone who reads ahead.